We're going to talk about Dejan Kulusevski. I mean, some worrying stats with Kulusevski at the moment. 1 goal, 1 assist in his last 13 games. 5 assists, 1 goal. What's this?
5 assists and 1 goal in the 10 games before that.
Oh, the 10 games before that. And 5 goals, 8 assists in the 14 starts last season. So what's happened with Kulusevski? I mean, some fans are alluding to that maybe he's been found out a little bit. His quality in the final third seems to have been shot to pieces. We'll start with you on this one, Ash. What do you think's happened with Kulusevski?
Like most players, it's a confidence thing where you could just see he's just not quite the same player. You know, when you have a run of form, you're buzzing, you're moving different. I personally think it may be the same thing with Son. I'm just throwing it out there that he said he can play attacking midfield, and I feel like he's been deployed there a little bit more this season. In a lot of games, he's like played a little bit more central, and as a result of that, he hasn't had the same opportunities, if that makes sense. He's not getting into the same shooting and scoring opportunities as before, where he was mainly out wide. From last season, he was basically out wide as a wing forward. But I think it's hard. It's a hard one because it's not like he's played attacking midfielder all season. He does drift off wide, and I feel like when he does drift off wide, you'll see him beat one or two players. But I think it's his decision making as well, because sometimes when he does come inside and he tries to beat one or two players, the next thought in his head should be to pass it. And like Son, sometimes that's when they get caught out. When they're dribbling in fields, they will lose the ball a lot of the time because they're just doing one dribble too many. And that in itself can affect confidence. I feel like when he was coming off wide and he was shooting, it just wasn't quite happening for him as well. And I think some of the fans are right. Maybe some of the players had kind of figured him out. They were like probably watching a lot of his tactical videos where last season he was a bit of an unknown quantity. This video, they're probably looking at him saying, okay, he likes to slow it down a bit and then speed it up. So let's just watch out for that. Let's put 2 on him. Do you know what I mean? And then on top of it, he did come back from injury for part of the season, so maybe the injuries affected him somewhat as well. Doesn't help when your playing partner changes. So maybe he might have been used to a Bentancur and Emerson, and obviously he's lost both of them, and that's maybe not helped in the way of the way of chances, the way he's performed of late. Again, I always talk about rhythm, continuity, patterns of play. When that changes and you're not doing, 1-2s, and he normally comes in from deep, and then he breaks off from deep and he starts those attack. He has been doing that this season, but it just hasn't been working the same way. It's like teams have figured out that we kind of start our moves from that right hand side, and they're literally onto us, and it's just not really worked out from a progression level for him. And when you stop a good player like Kulusevski from source, when you stop him from early, then that's when problems can happen. That's just my opinion, because it's really hard to see what else it could be. But you guys might be able to shed some more light.
Barry, what are you thinking? What do you think's happened to Decky?
Right, it seems like ever since he's had that injury, not only has there been that injury, there's also been, like Ash has said, that teams have figured him out. They've doubled up on him. That he's very predictable in the fact that he's because he's lost maybe a bit of pace. Then he doesn't have that run on people. Great footballing brain. We still see him doing some of the stuff that he was doing before, and obviously towards when he first came in. But it just seems that there's something there that's holding it back. Whether it's because, like you say, he's had so many different people on that right hand side, and obviously Bentancur's not there as well. He's just a little bit lost, let's just say, and there's not that relationship that he would have had, and he just kind of feels that everyone's thinking, come on, cut inside, whip that ball in, and it's just not. It just doesn't seem like it's happening for whatever reason. And I just think there's just been so many things that have happened. And who knew what this World Cup was going to do? It's obviously played with the footballers of. We thought it was going to, we never thought it would happen where players would go there and come back and be injured, or their form would be affected by it and everything else. And it just seems
he didn't even go to the World Cup, did he?
Exactly.
Even in. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's the thing. You've just you build up to it. You're in form, and then all of a sudden you got a month off. You're not round everyone. You're training, kind of alone. It's a lot of things and a lot of that have happened, and that's it. They all play their part. I don't think there's one thing that sits there and you can sit there and go, well, that's the reason. It's the injuries. It's like I said, injury, World Cup, Bentancur. The amount of people at right wing back. It's the way that the team's playing, the manager, it's just a multitude of things, and it kind of really Kulusevski's form kind of sums up, where we are as a club. We're all over the place. We started with the best start to a season in 23 years, and now I wouldn't be surprised if it's the worst finish to a season ever. I can't put it down to one thing.
When you're looking at it and you're looking at the Spurs tactics, and it's very same every week, same tactics, same idea, same game plan, no variety. Do you reckon that plays into it a little bit with Kulusevski? Because you need to leave the opponent second guessing a little bit about the ways you're going to attack them, the ways they need to defend. And if we're doing the same thing every time, we've seen a drop off from Son this season, we've seen a drop off from Kulusevski this season. Obviously, Kane is just an animal, but do you think that has played into it?
The lack of variety probably has, because we've seen when sometimes Richarlison comes in on that side, it changes the dynamic a bit, and it keeps it being unpredictable. Maybe selecting the same three constantly is going to make it easier for opposition to analyse you and identify where you're strong, where you're weak, and easier to find you out. For me, Kulusevski, what I'm seeing on the pitch, I'm not seeing a player who's doing anything drastically different when it comes to his ability on the ball, when it comes to dribbling ability, hold up play, keeping the ball. He seems to be dribbling as good as he was. He's actually, for me, he's still keeping the ball fairly well. And I still think he's dribbling out tricky situations impressively. What's really dried up, though, is his goal contributions. And last season, he got 13 goal contributions in 14 starts. It was phenomenal. For the first 10 games of the season, he got 6 goal contributions in 10 games. So he started the season fairly strong. But since the World Cup, it's been 13 games and he's had 2 goal contributions. So that is really dried up. And I have to think, why has that happened since the World Cup? What's changed since the World Cup? I think there's been a massive focus, it seems to me, or in our attacking play, is to constantly get the ball out wide and constantly get it to our wing backs and get crosses in the box. Last season, I don't know whether because maybe our wing backs are a bit more defensive players than they are this season, with Porro and Perisic a lot more offensive. Last season with Emerson, Sessegnon, they're a bit more defensive kind of options. Maybe that led to Kulusevski feeling like he had more attacking responsibility in that final third to pick out incisive passes, shoot on goal and things like that. In the last 10 games or so, it just seems our only tactic is get the ball to the final third and get out wide and putting a cross in. And that is not going to be conducive to getting the best out of Kulusevski. You need him inside in those central areas, in that right-hand pocket, either getting shots off or picking out incisive passes, getting crosses off. And he was doing that in the first half of the season. I actually thought he started the season really well, Kulusevski, in the first part. He was looking like he was going to carry on his good form. But since the World Cup, the dynamic of the team we know has changed. We've gotten a lot worse, even since the World Cup. The inconsistency of form has been there. And I think the way we attack, I don't know. Maybe it's just because Porro and Perisic are so offensive. But whenever we get into the final third, there is no let's try and go through the centre, do those through balls like he was doing last season, or get a shot off. He's always going out wide every single time because that's where the space is. He's playing to the space to Porro and Perisic, and they're whipping crosses. He's not going to be a player to get on the end of a cross. He just isn't. He's going to be the one putting the crosses in and hanging out on that side. And maybe that's why we're seeing the goal contributions dry up a bit, because we're way too focused on getting that ball to the fullback rather than having him create the chances or get the shots off. And I have to say as well, for one reason or another, I don't know what it is, but his shooting boots have been completely off this season. Whereas last season, you saw that goal against Norwich at the end of the season. I thought that was going to be a sign of things to come from Kulusevski when it came to that left foot. It looked like dynamite. But for this season, I'm not sure why, but whenever he takes a shot, it hasn't been good enough, to be honest. That would be one critical thing I would say about him when it comes to his play. His shooting has been way off it. I think he's got a much better shot than what he's showing, and I don't know why he can't seem to show it more often. But when it comes to like his decision-making, passing, I don't even think it's his decision-making has completely gone off the ball. I just think the runs the player are making, they're getting into the box and he's been asked to play out wide so that we get the crosses in. And I think that's the game plan. And I just think that's not the most conducive way of getting more goal contributions out of him.
Yeah, and it's like we were sitting here, weren't we, at the back end of last season, having big arguments with Arsenal fans. Who's better, Saka, Kulusevski? I mean, judging by this season, I mean,
look,
it's
Saka's
hard to argue that case anymore, is it?
No, you can't really argue it right now. But I honestly think when I look at both players and the quality they both have, I think Kulusevski in his best can be up there with Saka, and I still believe that even now. But of course, Saka has taken his game on another level. I can't argue that.
Exactly.
Since last
he's
season.
Not just bottling Euros now; he's bottling league titles.
Exactly, but he really has taken up his game another level. To be serious, he has, and he's got the goal contributions have really rocketed up for him. Kulusevski hasn't been able to maintain the standards he set last season, but if he can do that over a season, he is as good a player as he is, Saka is. But I think he needs to be put in a better, more attacking system.
Do you agree with that, Ash? Do you think Kulusevski can be on that level that Saka's on?
No, he can be, but just to add to what Sim was saying, I think he's totally spot on. If you look at what Brighton have done with Estupiñán and Matoma, last season we had players like, before Perisic came, obviously, we had Ben Davies, Sessegnon, on the left side, and then on the right-hand side, we had obviously Emerson, didn't we? You had Emerson on that right side. And a lot of them, what they like to do was the inside, or what I call an underlapping run, which forced some of our wing forwards to pull out wide, and they would start their runs out wide and then run into the box that way. So it was like a different angle, and also the position that your body's in, you're able to receive the ball on a half turn, or you're not facing basically your teammate, because when you're high up the pitch, you don't want to be looking at your teammate. You kind of want to be side on, or you want to be running onto a ball, if that makes sense. So I think because Perry's there, Porro's there, that space is no longer there, and they're told to kind of tuck in a lot more. And I think with Spurs, I think we've had the most crosses in the league into a box than any other team. So when you look at Perisic, you look at Porro, they're always asked to kind of hug that touchline, get chalk in their boots. And last season we had Son, out wide, pulling out wide. We had definitely Cooley was pulling out wide a lot more last season. And then he was chopping in. He would do that chop, and then he would do the shot, or then he would square it. He didn't know, because he was unpredictable whether he was going to pass or shoot. And his decision making was praised amongst the whole community, but not just Spurs fans, but just literally football fans in general. And that's why I think that was the difference between Saka and Kulusevski, was that mere fact that he just knew when to pick players out, and then he knew when to shoot. And because that's been taken away from him, he's no longer allowed to pull out wide and stay wide, or then sometimes come inside, because sometimes he wasn't always just hanging out wide. He also had that chance where he could jump inside in the half space. Do you know what I mean? On the right hand half space, he wasn't always just fully out wide. He could come inside, and then the wing back would switch around. But where they don't switch it, it's literally one way or the other. And those crosses, when they come to nothing, like we said, Porro's doing 15 crosses, and 5 of them are accurate. And then Perisic is doing 19 crosses, and 2 of them are accurate. That method's clearly not working, and our forward players are suffering for it. And I think that's part of the reason why Kulu has been underperforming this season. But had had we kept it the same as last season, I think Saka could have had those same numbers or been up there with Saka. I honestly do. I honestly think that.
All right, I think we're going to leave it there. But Ash, Barry, thank you so much for coming on today. If you want to see more of Barry, you want to tell people where they can find you when you're not here on We Are Tottenham TV?
When I'm not there, yeah, you can find us on a Thursday night Shelfside Spurs show with Rez, who came on and gave a very interesting and well documented post-match.
Well articulated, I would say.
That's the word I was looking for. See, that's why Rez does it and I don't. So yeah, Thursday 7:30 Shelfside Spurs show.
Big up. Thanks for coming on, Barry. And Ash, you're part of a YouTube channel now, so you can tell us all about it.
Yeah, I'm there with Marlon and Haas. The handle's there. You can see me, Southview, COYS. So you can see me on that channel. We'll pop up and do shows. Sometimes we do post-match shows as well. And you can see me here as well. We are Tottenham TV and various other shows as well, man. Yeah.
Big up. Well, thanks for coming on today. Thank you, everyone in the chat for coming on and watching as well. We'll see you all next week for our next panel. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always,
come on, you Spurs.